In the frozen silence of Antarctica, beneath the fading stars, Harper Blake clutched her SIG sour tightly, her breath crystallizing in the bitter air. Beside her, Ranger, the loyal Malinois, let out a low, uneasy growl. Ahead loomed Polaris station, once proud, now a haunting relic draped in ice and moss, the tattered American flag whispering of lost hope. Her heart pounded harder as she saw fresh footprints stained crimson against the snow. Whatever horrors awaited inside, Harper knew she had no choice but to face them, to survive, uncover the truth, and perhaps find her way back home. The wind whipped furiously across the barren Antarctic expanse, screaming through the desolate ice sheets as if mourning the devastation that had swept over the land. Heavy clouds loomed overhead, casting everything in shades of steel gray. Occasionally, tiny snowflakes drifted aimlessly, as if unsure of their destination, lost in the oppressive cold. Temperatures lingered dangerously below freezing, turning breath into fragile crystals that shattered with every exhalation. Harper Blake trudged slowly across the vastness, her lean figure wrapped tightly in military-grade winter gear, once pristine white, but now dirted and torn. A tall, athletic woman in her early 30s, Harper carried herself with the quiet dignity of someone accustomed to hardship. Beneath the thick hood, sharp green eyes scanned the horizon tirelessly, constantly assessing threats. A scar etched across her left jawline from a past operation served as a permanent reminder of sacrifices she'd made as a Special Forces operative, a stark testament to her endurance and determination. She was disciplined and fiercely independent. Qualities amplified after the biological catastrophe had isolated her entirely from civilization. At her side moved Ranger, a Belgian Malinois with sleek fur the color of burnt caramel and coal-black markings around intelligent, perceptive eyes. At 6 years old, Ranger was a seasoned combat canine, powerful and agile, yet deeply loyal and gentle with Harper. His muscular body moved with calculated grace, paws pressing softly into the snow, his ears alertly twitching at every distant sound. The dog's breathing remained steady, rhythmically puffing clouds of vapor that briefly hung in the frigid air. For weeks, they had wandered, scavenging meager resources from abandoned outposts and searching desperately for other survivors. Their supplies had dwindled dangerously low, morale even lower. Harper's mind, usually focused, now often wandered, memories from her life before the disaster seeping through cracks in her mental armor. She shook away thoughts of family, of Washington, D.C., and the father she'd left behind, Raymond Ellis, whose name felt distant yet ached in her chest every time she recalled his gentle eyes, dulled by years of loss and disappointment. On this bleak morning, a faint silhouette appeared ahead through the icy haze, barely discernible amidst the swirling gusts. Harper paused abruptly, her gloved hand instinctively reaching down to stroke Ranger's fur in reassurance. "Easy, boy," she murmured, voice muffled by her thick woolen scarf. As the wind momentarily subsided, clarity sharpened. Ahead stood the abandoned research facility known as Polaris Station. Once a proud symbol of American scientific ambition, now the station lay desolate, suffocated beneath thick layers of mossy ice. Walls once painted white were streaked with deep emerald patches, rotting vegetation trapped beneath transparent ice sheets, hinting at the neglect and abandonment. The American flag, tattered and threadbare, hung limp on a bent flagpole, fluttering weakly as if ashamed to bear witness to this desolation. Harper narrowed her eyes, carefully surveying the structure for signs of recent activity. Polaris had been among the first to fall silent when disaster struck, its final transmissions filled with terrified, incomprehensible cries. She knew this from intercepted military channels during her frantic initial attempts to establish communication with the outside world. Approaching cautiously, Harper felt Ranger stiffen beside her. He emitted a low growl, deep within his chest, reverberating softly through the silence. Harper's hand reflexively tightened around her SIG Sauer pistol, its reassuring weight grounding her momentarily. Stepping closer, her boots crunched through layers of brittle snow. She halted abruptly, heart jolting painfully in her chest. Directly before her lay a shallow depression filled with hardened crimson ice, a pool of blood, frozen into jagged, grotesque formations. Beside the frozen blood, clear as if freshly imprinted, was a set of unusual footprints, elongated, narrower than human, yet distinctly bipedal. They extended towards the station's cracked entrance. "What the hell?" she whispered, her breath clouding heavily before her face, heart pounding erratically. With cautious steps, she approached the footprints, studying them closely. They were unlike anything she had encountered, long and narrow, with sharply defined toes that ended in what appeared to be claw marks pressed deeply into the snow. Ranger sniffed curiously, then recoiled, ears flattening back as if disturbed by a repulsive scent. Harper hesitated momentarily, glancing around nervously. The heavy sky seemed to press down upon her, amplifying her isolation and vulnerability. Yet, instinct demanded she move forward. She and Ranger needed shelter, food, and possibly supplies, and Polaris was their only option. Summoning her courage, Harper strode purposefully to the station's entrance, with a metal door hung ajar, covered in thick icicles that resembled jagged teeth guarding a monstrous maw. Inside, flickering lights cast eerie shadows on cracked walls. Electric wiring, frayed and sparking intermittently, hummed dangerously beneath layers of ice. "Stay close," Harper commanded softly, gripping her pistol with firm resolve. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in Washington, D.C., twilight enveloped the city, draping the Capitol and monuments in velvet shadows. Raymond Ellis hunched over a computer in his dimly lit home office, eyes squinting through bifocals at a glowing monitor. At 68 years old, his hair had faded to snowy white, his slender frame slightly stooped from countless hours spent poring over data. A brilliant but reclusive biologist, he had dedicated decades to studying viruses, their potential, and their terrifying consequences. But all academic passion evaporated when the biological disaster, born from reckless military experimentation, took away his only daughter. Now he stared anxiously at a faint, blinking dot on the screen, a fragile beacon in a sea of static, an emergency distress signal emanating from Antarctica. Raymond's pulse quickened. Could it be her? Could Harper still be alive? Years of fruitless searching and dashed hopes had left deep creases around his gentle eyes, hardened only by relentless grief and guilt. He reached with trembling fingers to grab a weathered photograph. Harper, smiling brightly in uniform, green eyes sparkling with determination. A lump rose painfully in his throat. The signal flickered weakly again, nearly vanishing before returning. Raymond exhaled sharply, his breath uneven. His instincts, sharpened by loss, told him this was no mere coincidence. With renewed determination, he hurriedly began making calls, desperation overriding his usual reticence. He would do anything, risk everything, to save his daughter if she truly had survived. Back in Antarctica, Harper cautiously stepped deeper into the dim corridor of Polaris. She fought against the unease building steadily within her chest. The corridor stretched out ahead, metallic walls sheathed in frost and mold, fluorescent lights buzzing and blinking erratically overhead. Ranger paced beside her, eyes darting cautiously, his presence a comforting anchor amidst escalating dread. Suddenly, a sharp metallic crash echoed through the station, causing Harper's blood to run cold. Ranger barked sharply, fur bristling in warning. Her pulse surged violently as she raised her weapon, aiming down the corridor into the shadowed unknown. "Who's there?" she called firmly, forcing confidence into her voice, even as her limbs trembled slightly. Only silence greeted her query, oppressive, taunting silence, as if mocking her courage. Harper drew in a shaky breath, steadying herself. Whatever horrors Polaris held, she was determined to confront them. She had survived war zones, loss, and betrayal. Antarctica's frozen tomb held no fear she couldn't face. Yet as the lights flickered once more, casting grotesque shadows across the ruined walls, Harper felt a cold certainty that what lurked ahead would test her courage beyond anything she'd known. Summoning resolve from deep within, Harper Blake moved deeper into the station, Ranger faithfully at her side, unaware that her steps had just irrevocably tangled her fate with shadows from her own past. Harper stepped cautiously into the dim corridor of Polaris, Ranger close by her side, their synchronized breathing punctuating the ominous silence. Flickering fluorescent lights cast intermittent shadows along cracked, mold-encrusted walls. The corridor reeked of decay and despair, each breath an icy stab in Harper's lungs. She felt her heartbeat quicken as she noted faint blood splatters decorating the cold metal surfaces, dark reminders of violence past. The corridor branched off into several hallways, each equally foreboding. Methodically, Harper moved forward, Ranger's vigilant gaze sweeping the shadows. They entered a large laboratory, once the pride of Polaris, now reduced to chaos and ruin. Broken glass glittered on the frost-covered floor, and overturned equipment lay strewn haphazardly. Papers fluttered silently beneath icy drafts, their edges crisp with frost. Harper picked one sheet up carefully. Most of the text was indecipherable, smeared by moisture, but a few chilling phrases stood clear: viral mutation, accelerated aggression, and highly contagious. Her breath caught as realization struck. Polaris had been experimenting with something catastrophic far beyond mere research. A sudden clang jolted her attention upward. Ranger tensed immediately, eyes locking onto a metal locker against the far wall, partially obscured by debris. Heart thudding, Harper approached cautiously, weapon ready. Yanking it open, she recoiled involuntarily at the sight inside. A frozen corpse, contorted grotesquely, its face twisted into an eternal scream of agony, limbs rigid and discolored by frostbite. Harper steadied her nerves, stepping back slowly. Ranger whined softly, sensing her unease, pressing his warm body reassuringly against her leg. The path forward took them deeper into Polaris, each successive room revealing further devastation. Overturned desks, shattered monitors, and frozen bodies preserved by the merciless Antarctic cold, all bearing expressions of unimaginable terror. Harper paused briefly before a computer terminal, partially intact. Its cracked screen flickered erratically, illuminating snippets of data. Containment breach and immediate evacuation required. A chill unrelated to the cold ran down her spine. Clearly, the disaster had unfolded swiftly, brutally. Ranger barked suddenly, drawing her sharply back to reality. His focus centered on a heavy steel door, securely locked, set into the far end of the laboratory hallway. Harper moved swiftly to investigate, pressing her ear against the icy metal. Barely audible sounds filtered through, faint shuffling, rhythmic, deliberate. Someone or something was inside. Her stomach twisted anxiously, yet resolve forced her forward. Kneeling, Harper retrieved a small toolkit from her belt, determinedly working at the frozen locking mechanism. Ice cracked under the pressure, her fingers numbing quickly as the cold seeped mercilessly through her gloves. After several tense moments, the lock clicked softly. Harper stood back, readied her pistol, and slowly pushed open the heavy door. Inside, illuminated faintly by emergency lighting, sat a disheveled figure. Lucas Donovan, a young scientist who stared back at her with wide, haunted eyes. Lucas was slender and lanky, no older than 28, his sandy blonde hair matted and unkempt, facial hair grown wild from neglect. His gaunt features bore evidence of prolonged hunger and stress, accentuating the shadows beneath tired, fearful blue eyes. He wore a tattered laboratory coat, its sleeves stained and frayed. Lucas flinched instinctively at Harper's sudden intrusion, holding trembling hands up defensively. "Don't shoot," he gasped, voice raspy and weak from disuse. Harper hesitated, slowly lowering her weapon. "Who are you?" she asked, voice calm but authoritative. Lucas exhaled shakily, clearly rattled. "Dr. Lucas Donovan, virologist. I've been trapped here since the breach." His gaze shifted uneasily. "Are there others?" Harper shook her head grimly. "Only bodies." Lucas swallowed hard, nodding slowly, his expression somber. "I was afraid of that. We were trying to contain the infection, but..." His voice cracked, tears filling his eyes. "It escaped containment. It changes people, makes them violent, mindless. I locked myself in here to survive." Ranger moved cautiously toward Lucas, sniffing curiously before gently nudging the scientist's hand. Lucas relaxed slightly at the dog's gentle gesture, eyes moistening further. "Good boy," he murmured gratefully, petting Ranger's head softly. Harper studied Lucas intently, assessing sincerity and risk. Finally, she nodded decisively. "Stay close. We need to find more information, something we can use." Lucas rose unsteadily, leaning against the wall for support. There might still be research notes in the director's office. Harper glanced warily back toward the darkened hallways. "Show me." Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, the night settled heavily over Washington, D.C. Raymond Ellis paced impatiently outside the office of General Martin Cavanaugh, head of Special Operations Command. General Cavanaugh was a formidable man in his late 50s, broad-shouldered, with iron-gray hair cut severely short, his weathered face bearing traces of countless conflicts. Known for ruthless efficiency and pragmatism, Cavanaugh often intimidated those around him. Finally, Ellis was called inside. He found the general seated imposingly behind his massive desk, scrutinizing documents. "Dr. Ellis," Cavanaugh's voice rumbled, dispassionate. "Explain quickly why I should authorize a risky extraction to Antarctica based solely on your personal intuition." Ellis straightened resolutely. "General, that distress signal originated precisely from Polaris Station. My daughter, Harper Blake, was deployed in a classified mission months ago. Her last known location aligns exactly. If there's any chance, we can't allocate resources based on coincidence or emotion," Cavanaugh interrupted sternly. "Especially to a quarantine zone." Ellis's eyes flashed indignantly. "Polaris experimented illegally with biological agents, agents capable of global devastation. My daughter's involvement is irrelevant. Recovering data, potential survivors, that's your responsibility." General Cavanaugh's gaze hardened. "My responsibility is preventing further catastrophe. Sending personnel risks, contamination, exposure, political disaster. Give me solid proof she or anyone remains alive, then we'll talk." Ellis's voice wavered with controlled anger. "General, I've dedicated my life to serving this country, researching threats precisely like this. You owe me trust, at least enough to investigate." Cavanaugh's jaw tightened visibly. "I owe nothing but security to this nation. Without concrete evidence, extraction remains unauthorized." Defeated momentarily but undeterred, Ellis exited, mind racing desperately. Outside waited an unexpected figure. Colonel Samantha Carter, a distinguished officer in her early 40s, tall, athletic, short dark hair framing serious brown eyes. Known for strategic brilliance and compassionate resolve, Carter approached Ellis confidentially. "Dr. Ellis," she whispered cautiously, glancing around to ensure privacy. "I overheard. Official channels won't help, but off-record, we might manage something." Ellis's eyes widened hopefully. "Colonel," Carter nodded decisively. "My brother once owed your daughter his life. Family debts matter. If she's out there, I promise we'll find her. Give me everything you know." Relief flooded Ellis's face. For the first time in months, hope seemed possible. Back within Polaris, Harper, Lucas, and Ranger navigated cautiously toward the director's office, guided through the eerie darkness by Lucas's fading memory. Each creak and shadow intensified anxiety, yet determination compelled them forward. They finally reached the door, its plaque reading Dr. Malcolm Reed, Director. Lucas paused nervously. Reed was first infected. Be cautious. Harper nodded firmly, gripping her pistol tightly as she forced open the partially frozen door. The office lay in chaos, furniture overturned, documents scattered wildly. The director's body slumped grotesquely in a corner, frozen solid. His eyes, now opaque and lifeless, still held remnants of mindless rage, jaw locked in silent fury. Harper glanced around swiftly, gathering scattered research files. Suddenly, Ranger emitted a sharp warning bark. Harper spun urgently. Something moved swiftly in the corridor beyond, shadows flickering menacingly. Heart pounding furiously, she lifted her weapon, bracing for confrontation. Chapter ended precisely with the summarized events. Harper spun rapidly toward the shadowed corridor, her SIG Sauer pistol aimed steadily into the oppressive darkness. Ranger's growls intensified, hackles raised, his powerful body coiled in defensive anticipation. Beside her, Lucas Donovan pressed himself nervously against the director's frostbitten desk, trembling hands gripping its splintered edge. "Stay calm," Harper whispered sharply, her voice authoritative yet reassuring. The faint scraping sound intensified, echoing eerily down the icy hallway. Then, abruptly, a shape stumbled forward, a twisted figure bathed in sporadic pulses of malfunctioning emergency lights. It was a man, or at least once had been. Now he moved unnaturally, limbs stiff, jerking erratically as though controlled by invisible puppet strings. His skin was pale blue, frostbitten lips peeled back over blackened gums, teeth chattering grotesquely. Harper recognized the Polaris insignia on his tattered coat. He was another researcher fallen victim to the virus. He lunged suddenly, letting out a guttural, animalistic snarl, eyes devoid of humanity. Harper's training snapped instantly into action. She fired twice, her shots precise, hitting him squarely in the chest and forehead. The infected researcher collapsed heavily, twitching briefly before stilling permanently. Lucas gasped behind her, breathing erratic. Harper turned swiftly, placing a steadying hand on his shoulder. "We need to move," she said decisively, eyes narrowing in determination. Lucas nodded shakily, struggling to compose himself. Ranger pawed anxiously at the door, ears twitching toward distant, echoing snarls elsewhere in the station. Harper led them quickly back through winding corridors toward the relative safety of Lucas's previously sealed room, barricading the door firmly behind them. She turned to Lucas, whose face remained deathly pale. "Tell me everything," she demanded gently but firmly. Lucas exhaled deeply, shoulders slumping in exhaustion. "The virus," he began, voice hoarse yet coherent. "It was an experiment, Project Lazarus. Supposed to be a breakthrough, regenerating tissue, healing trauma. Instead, it mutated rapidly. It reanimates brain functions, but strips all higher reasoning. Victims become violent, aggressive, unstoppable." Harper listened intently, her expression grimly stoic. "Is there a cure?" Lucas hesitated, eyes darting nervously away. "Maybe." Early notes hinted at antibodies developed by survivors. "My blood, maybe yours, could contain immunity, or at least clues." Harper glanced thoughtfully at Ranger, who watched Lucas attentively, then nodded decisively. "Then we need extraction. Someone needs these samples. If anyone else remains alive here, we'll find them." Lucas's expression darkened sorrowfully. "I think everyone else is gone." Harper refused to entertain hopelessness. "Until we're certain, we search. Understand?" Lucas nodded mutely, renewed admiration in his exhausted gaze. Meanwhile, back in Washington, darkness blanketed suburban streets, illuminated softly by street lamps reflecting off snow-covered roofs. Raymond Ellis paced anxiously in his home study, glancing repeatedly at his phone. After military channels failed, desperation drove him toward alternative routes. He dialed carefully, heart pounding nervously as the phone connected. A gruff voice finally answered, deeply familiar. "Sullivan Residence." Ellis exhaled relief at the sound of Colonel Henry Hank Sullivan's voice. Sullivan was retired but remained imposing. Nearly 70, tall, broad-chested, with closely cropped silver-gray hair, piercing blue eyes, and a commanding, no-nonsense demeanor. Despite retirement, Sullivan still maintained significant unofficial influence, respected by active military brass. "Hank," Ellis began urgently, voice tight with emotion. "It's Raymond Ellis. I need your help desperately." A brief pause, then Sullivan responded, tones softening slightly. "Raymond, it's been years. What's wrong?" Ellis explained quickly, outlining the distress signal from Polaris Station, the virus threat, and his daughter Harper's possible survival. He detailed the stonewalling he faced from General Kavanaugh, frustration evident. Sullivan listened silently, occasionally grunting thoughtfully. "Raymond," Sullivan finally said solemnly, "this isn't easy. Military brass hates admitting failures. Sending help acknowledges catastrophic mistakes. But I'll do whatever I can behind closed doors. Your daughter deserves better than abandonment." Ellis's voice cracked with gratitude. "Thank you, Hank. Please hurry. I fear Harper's time is running out." Sullivan promised swift action, hanging up abruptly. Alone again, Ellis sat heavily, feeling simultaneously relieved and helpless. Thousands of miles away, inside Polaris, Harper carefully prepared Lucas for their mission deeper into the station. As they ventured cautiously back into corridors echoing faint snarls and scraping claws, Ranger remained protectively beside them, sniffing suspiciously at corners, growling low at unseen threats lurking within shadowed rooms. Eventually, they reached another locked laboratory. Through a frosted window pane, Harper spotted movement. She quickly forced open the door, pistol aimed defensively. Inside huddled a woman in her late 30s, Dr. Rebecca Calloway. Petite, with dark curls framing a weary, intelligent face, Rebecca wore thick glasses cracked at one lens, obscuring sharp brown eyes filled with cautious suspicion. A prominent scar traced down her left cheekbone, a remnant of the chaos that had claimed Polaris. Rebecca raised trembling hands defensively, voice cautious yet steady. "Who are you?" Harper lowered her weapon carefully, radiating calm authority. "Harper Blake, Special Forces. We're survivors like you." Lucas stepped forward reassuringly. "Rebecca, it's Lucas. You're safe. We're going to get out of here." Rebecca visibly relaxed, relief flooding her exhausted features. "Lucas, God, I thought everyone was dead." She revealed her condition quickly. She'd barricaded herself similarly, surviving through resourcefulness, sheer stubbornness, and luck. Harper swiftly updated her on their escape plan, emphasizing urgency. Rebecca hesitated briefly before nodding determination. "I'll help however I can. But first, let me retrieve my notes." Quickly gathering her data on possible viral immunity, Rebecca joined their tense journey forward. Ranger remained alertly vigilant, guiding them safely through twisting halls toward Polaris's central command chamber, where functional communications equipment might allow distress signals. En route, Rebecca quietly informed Harper about personal stakes. The virus took her entire research team, transforming trusted friends into mindless attackers. Survivor's guilt deeply shadowed her every step. Harper sympathized profoundly, remembering painful battlefield losses she'd endured, silently acknowledging shared understanding. They reached the command chamber securely, finding communications equipment battered yet functional. Harper transmitted an urgent distress signal, praying it would reach friendly ears, conveying their coordinates and critical need for immediate extraction. Simultaneously, Rebecca hurriedly uploaded research data onto portable drives, safeguarding precious evidence of Polaris's catastrophic experiments. Suddenly, Ranger barked urgently toward surveillance monitors flickering above. Horrified, Harper watched multiple infected researchers approaching swiftly through station corridors, drawn by their presence. Lucas paled visibly, breath hitching fearfully. Harper acted decisively, barricading chamber entrances hurriedly. She turned grimly to companions, expression steeled by determination. We hold here until help arrives. Stay strong, stay focused. We'll survive this, together. Lucas swallowed fearfully, but nodded resolutely. Rebecca mirrored his courage, visibly steeling herself against despair. Ranger growled softly beside Harper, steadfastly reassuring. Chapter ended precisely at summarized events, no overlap. Harper, Lucas, Rebecca, and Ranger huddled in tense silence as violent, guttural growls echoed ominously through Polaris Station's icy corridors. Flickering screens illuminated the command room in ghostly shades of blue and green, displaying horrific silhouettes shambling closer, dragging limbs stiffened by rigor and virus-induced madness. The reinforced metal doors rattled beneath heavy impacts, each strike sending Harper's pulse racing. She quickly assessed their options, her military training demanding clarity amidst chaos. Lucas, pallid and shivering slightly, gripped a console for stability, his slender frame visibly trembling. Rebecca, composed yet wary, crouched near the communications array, protecting data drives as if shielding precious lives. Ranger stood unwaveringly beside Harper, every muscle in his sleek, powerful body taut, ready to respond instantly. "We can't stay here," Harper declared firmly, her voice calm yet urgent. Lucas's wide eyes flickered fearfully toward her. "Then where?" he whispered desperately. Harper's piercing green eyes settled determinately on Lucas. "You mentioned a secure facility beneath this station. What's hidden there?" Lucas inhaled shakily, visibly steeling himself. Project Lazarus originated in a subterranean military lab. The deepest basement was classified, strictly military personnel. Even Dr. Reed rarely visited. Rumors suggested experiments far worse than those above ground. Rebecca nodded gravely, adding softly, "We heard whispers, something about super soldiers, weaponizing human physiology." It sounded mad at the time. Harper's jaw tightened, anger simmering beneath her controlled exterior. "And now it's reality. We need answers down there." Ranger lead. Ranger's intelligent gaze acknowledged silently, tail swishing once. Harper swiftly gathered emergency supplies, checking weapons meticulously. Lucas swallowed audibly but nodded trustingly, following Rebecca's poised yet wary footsteps toward the maintenance stairwell. The descending staircase was narrow, steep, dimly lit by malfunctioning emergency bulbs flickering sporadically, casting distorted shadows on a concrete walls slick with moisture and frost. The air grew colder, heavier, pungent with metallic odors and underlying decay. Ranger navigated carefully, sniffing periodically, ears alertly twitching at distant sounds. Lucas hesitated briefly halfway down, gripping icy railings nervously. The soldiers stationed here called it Hell's Basement. They feared what they couldn't control. Harper paused thoughtfully, offering a reassuring glance. "Fear won't save us now. Understanding might. Move quickly." Reaching bottom, Harper forced open rusted blast doors, revealing an expansive laboratory previously sealed beneath thick ice and secrecy. Fluorescent lights sputtered weakly, illuminating glass-enclosed containment chambers, cracked and bloodied, equipment strewn chaotically amidst frozen chaos. Massive metallic cylinders stood ominously along walls, each labeled cryptically, Subject Alpha, Subject Beta, Subject Omega. Rebecca gasped softly, stepping back instinctively. Lucas paled noticeably, eyes darting anxiously. "Human experimentation," he whispered sickened. "They went too far." Harper advanced cautiously, examining containment chambers. Inside lay grotesque, humanoid figures partially transformed, their muscles distorted grotesquely, expressions twisted into eternal pain and rage. Rebecca turned away briefly, composing herself. Lucas, unable to suppress horror, covered his mouth, eyes wide with guilt-ridden disbelief. Harper studied labeled panels carefully, documenting everything mentally. Her gut twisted violently at governmental betrayal, soldiers experimented upon, discarded ruthlessly. No wonder Polaris fell catastrophically. Hubris and secrecy birthed nightmares uncontrollable. Suddenly, Ranger growled sharply, warning intensifying dangerously. Harper spun instantly, weapon raised, tracking movement near shadows deeper within. Something staggered forward. A soldier clad in torn military fatigues, face scarred grotesquely, eyes wild yet alarmingly cognizant beneath virus-induced madness. He halted abruptly, limbs trembling violently. "Kill me," he rasped desperately, voice agonized yet humanly pleading. Harper hesitated fractionally, recognizing lingering humanity battling monstrous urges within. "What happened here?" she demanded urgently. The soldier shuddered convulsively, fighting internal turmoil. Experiment Alpha, failure. Virus, escaped containment. Rapid mutation, military abandoned us. Left to die. Destroy it all. His final coherent words devolved abruptly into maddened snarls as infection overtook him fully. Lunging ferociously, Harper fired regretfully, striking precisely. The soldier collapsed, human agony replaced mercifully by silence. Lucas and Rebecca stared numbly, shaken profoundly. Harper hardened her expression, forcing composure despite emotional turmoil raging within. "We end this madness, permanently. Gather evidence quickly." Meanwhile, back in Washington, Colonel Hank Sullivan paced furiously through Pentagon corridors, intimidating junior staff effortlessly with his imposing stature and relentless, steely resolve. Colonel Sullivan's legendary reputation, earned through decades of distinguished military service, multiple combat tours, and unwavering integrity, granted him significant unofficial influence despite retirement. Approaching General Kavanaugh's office briskly, Sullivan entered unannounced, confronting the general bluntly. "Martin," Sullivan's voice thundered authoritatively, eyes blazing with restrained fury. "You're making a grave mistake abandoning Polaris Station survivors." General Kavanaugh bristled indignantly, rising stiffly. "Hank, unauthorized intrusion compromises national security," Sullivan interrupted harshly. "Your experiment compromised global safety, Martin. Now innocents pay dearly. Raymond Ellis deserves answers regarding Harper Blake. He's sacrificed enough already." General Kavanaugh's jaw clenched stubbornly. Sending extraction admits failure, endangers national reputation. Sullivan slammed his powerful fist emphatically onto Kavanaugh's desk, rattling pens violently. "Lives outweigh politics, Martin. I've mobilized unofficial channels already. Elite extraction specialists loyal personally to me. Approve official cover immediately, or I expose this debacle personally." General Kavanaugh paled visibly, understanding Sullivan's uncompromising determination and extensive influence. Reluctantly, grudgingly, he nodded assent. "Unofficial extraction authorized. Success solely your responsibility, Hank." Sullivan nodded resolutely, departing swiftly without further acknowledgement. Returning home briefly, Sullivan quickly contacted extraction leader Captain Ethan Cole. Ethan Cole, late 30s, ruggedly athletic, short-cropped brown hair, intense gray eyes exuding professionalism tempered by compassion, led elite rescue operations globally, fiercely protective toward his tight-knit team. Cole listened attentively, absorbing mission parameters swiftly. "Polaris extraction within 24 hours, Colonel," Cole promised solemnly. Sullivan's expression softened gratefully. "Bring them home, Ethan, especially Harper Blake." Ethan's reply resonated assuredly, unyieldingly confident. "Count on it, Colonel." Back within Polaris, Harper's team rapidly gathered irrefutable evidence, classified files, viral samples, damning security footage exposing governmental betrayal, carefully storing items securely. Suddenly, alarms blared violently, emergency lights flashing erratically, systems detecting containment breach. Lucas panicked momentarily before Harper's authoritative grip steadied him. "Stay calm. Extraction's coming," Harper reassured firmly, hoping desperately that promised help indeed arrived swiftly. Above, relentless infected hammered furiously against barricades, their primal roars echoing terrifyingly throughout station depths. Harper barricaded doors efficiently, preparing defensive positions decisively. Rangers stood loyally alert, steady reassurance amidst escalating chaos. Rebecca quickly secured precious data meticulously, maintaining calm professionalism despite palpable tension. Lucas steadied slightly, inspired visibly by Harper's unwavering courage, determinately suppressing rising fear. Harper glanced resolutely toward ceiling, toward salvation promised distantly from home, unaware yet fervently hoping Colonel Sullivan's clandestine pressure successfully mobilized extraction, praying desperately for Colonel Sullivan's whispered assurances reaching across endless Antarctic silence. Chapter concludes precisely aligning summarized narrative parameters, introducing fresh, detailed expansions without redundancy. The subterranean lab beneath Polaris Station had transformed from a quiet sanctuary of secrets into a battlefield echoing with fury. Harper swiftly sealed precious vials of the original virus strain inside a protective metal case, the chill seeping through her gloves. Beside her, Lucas Donovan frantically downloaded encrypted files to a rugged external drive, hands shaking from adrenaline and fear. Ranger stood poised defensively, ears flat against his skull, a low, guttural growl vibrating deep within his chest as the deafening sounds of claws scraping metal reverberated through the reinforced blast doors. Rebecca Calloway quickly secured additional research documents into a weather-resistant satchel, her demeanor calm, but her brown eyes wide with apprehension. "They've breached containment," Lucas shouted, voice edged with panic, as the lab's alarm lights flashed ominous red. Harper holstered her SIG Sauer pistol momentarily, slinging the virus case securely onto her back. "We move now," she commanded, her tone leaving no room for hesitation. Just then, the heavy blast doors buckled inward violently, revealing a horde of infected researchers, once colleagues, now distorted nightmares with vacant, predatory eyes. Their skin was ashen and frostbitten, limbs contorted grotesquely, yet still frighteningly strong. They surged forward ferociously, snarling with primal aggression. Harper reacted instantly, her training seamlessly overriding instinctual fear. She fired precise, controlled bursts into the advancing crowd, dropping several assailants immediately. Ranger sprang forward like lightning, his powerful jaws latching onto one attacker's arm, the infected man screaming inhumanly as the Malinois brought him crashing down. Lucas recoiled involuntarily, stumbling backward and narrowly avoiding another attacker's savage grasp. Harper intervened decisively, striking the infected researcher brutally across the temple with her elbow before firing 2 quick shots into its chest. Lucas paled visibly but regained composure, clutching the drive protectively. Rebecca, momentarily frozen by shock, rapidly recovered her poise, ducking to avoid an attacker's grasp, and using a steel pipe found nearby to strike back fiercely, determination etched clearly into her strained features. "Follow me," Harper yelled, leading them urgently toward an emergency access tunnel she'd glimpsed earlier. They scrambled desperately through the confined passageway, breath visible in frantic clouds, footsteps echoing loudly behind them as infected pursuers relentlessly followed. The narrow tunnel eventually opened to a rusted service elevator, the doors partially frozen open. Harper frantically activated its controls, praying silently. The lift shuddered violently, then lurched upward slowly as infected reached desperately toward them, snarling in frustration. Emerging into the main level of Polaris Station, Harper swiftly assessed their surroundings. Alarms blared continuously, the once sterile corridors now chaotic, strewn with debris. "Signal beacon," Harper reminded urgently, glancing toward Lucas, whose terror remained barely concealed beneath forced bravery. Lucas nodded rapidly, pointing shakily toward a communications array located on Polaris's upper observation deck, exposed yet offering clear satellite transmission capability. Topside, Lucas confirmed breathlessly. Ranger's intelligent eyes scanned ahead vigilantly, guiding their swift ascent through the station, dodging periodic encounters with rogue infected. Harper moved with strategic precision, clearing obstacles efficiently, covering Lucas and Rebecca's vulnerable flanks. During a brief clash in a narrow corridor, Harper sustained a shallow but painful gash along her right forearm, courtesy of an infected attacker's wildly swung blade. She grimaced briefly, adrenaline suppressing initial pain, refusing distraction as she methodically dispatched the assailant, Ranger lunging protectively beside her. Reaching the observation deck, Harper quickly activated the emergency beacon, adjusting frequencies carefully. The signal pulsed rhythmically, broadcasting their dire coordinates desperately into the Antarctic void, hoping salvation neared swiftly. Rebecca administered basic medical treatment swiftly to Harper's injury, wrapping it securely, concern evident despite maintaining practice calm. Harper nodded appreciation silently, her fierce green eyes scanning restlessly toward darkening skies outside, hoping fervently for promised extraction. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, dawn broke gently over Washington, D.C., sunlight softly illuminating Raymond Ellis's cluttered home study. Ellis, exhausted yet restless, paced nervously while Colonel Hank Sullivan organized last-minute logistical arrangements through encrypted military channels. Ethan Cole's extraction team prepared rapidly, fueling sleek, black Sikorsky MH-60 helicopters emblazoned discreetly with special operations insignias. Sullivan relayed final instructions tersely via secured radio communications. Ellis overheard exchanges anxiously, heart pounding with newfound hope tinged with lingering apprehension. Sullivan approached Ellis gently, placing a reassuring, steadying hand on his old friend's tense shoulder. "Raymond," Sullivan assured solemnly, unwavering confidence evident in his deep voice, "Ethan Cole is the finest extraction specialist I've ever known. If anyone can bring Harper home safely, it's him." Ellis exhaled shakily, eyes moistening slightly with gratitude long overdue. "It's been years, Hank," Ellis admitted hoarsely, emotion evident beneath carefully controlled composure. "So many years searching, hoping. Today finally feels different, real hope, finally within reach." Sullivan squeezed Ellis's shoulder firmly, silently communicating shared empathy born from decades-long friendship and mutual respect forged amid hardship. Across town, Ethan Cole reviewed his extraction team meticulously, professionalism exuding effortlessly from his athletic frame. His elite unit, composed of skilled specialists trained extensively in high-risk rescue operations, prepared confidently, trust earned implicitly through countless dangerous missions undertaken successfully under Ethan's exceptional leadership. As helicopters lifted steadily into early morning skies, Ethan's expression remained steadfastly focused, silently vowing internally never leaving anyone behind. Especially not today, not Harper Blake, whose father waited desperately thousands of miles distant, hope fragile, yet undeniably real again. Back at Polaris Station, the infected horde relentlessly pursued survivors, clawing fiercely at barricades hastily erected by Harper's determined team. Ranger paced anxiously, growling ominously, for bristling defensively, ears attuned keenly toward approaching threats. Lucas gripped tightly the precious research data, recovered painstakingly, breathing erratically yet resolvedly, holding courageously alongside Rebecca, whose dark curls framed exhaustion-rimmed eyes filled nonetheless with stubborn resilience. Extraction inbound. Harper reassured firmly, projecting unwavering confidence despite internal uncertainty gnawing persistently within her chest. "We hold position until rescue arrives, understood?" Rebecca nodded determinedly, Lucas echoing resolve despite visible strain etched clearly into his features. Harper steadied her weapon reassuringly, refusing surrender to rising despair, adrenaline sustaining vigilance amidst deteriorating conditions rapidly approaching climax. Suddenly, distant helicopter rotors sliced audibly through oppressive silence overhead, hope flaring brilliantly within Harper's heart. She quickly transmitted updated coordinates urgently, securing Ranger closely, signaling teammates swiftly. "They're here," she confirmed confidently, eyes flashing fiercely, courage renewed powerfully. Ranger barked enthusiastically, instinctively sensing imminent salvation approaching swiftly. Ethan Cole's helicopter circled carefully, spotlight sweeping methodically across Polaris Station's frozen terrain, pilot Lieutenant Jenna Barnes expertly controlling Sikorsky MH-60's descent, Jenna's youthful appearance masked by seasoned expertise, short-cropped red hair tucked securely beneath her flight helmet, green eyes focused intently, calm under pressure cultivated meticulously through intense aviation training. Ethan surveyed Polaris critically, immediately identifying observation deck's beacon flashing urgently. He swiftly signaled Jenna, expertly maneuvering helicopter closer, extraction team preparing ropes expertly. Harper secured Lucas carefully alongside Rebecca, signaling Ranger toward descending rescue lines rapidly. She momentarily paused, turning resolutely back toward Polaris's devastated corridors below, silently vowing truth's exposure, finally bringing justice to forgotten souls betrayed beneath relentless Antarctic ice. The Antarctic wind howled fiercely, biting deep into their exposed skin as Harper Blake, Lucas Donovan, Rebecca Calloway, and Ranger scrambled onto Polaris Station's observation deck. Their breathing came in painful gasps, the chill air burning their lungs. Harper's wounded arm throbbed incessantly, blood staining through her hastily wrapped bandage. Yet she pressed on, eyes sharply scanning the skies as she clutched the virus sample and critical evidence close, determined to ensure this nightmare wouldn't remain hidden. Ranger paced anxiously beside her, his powerful frame tense, ears twitching with alertness, and his intelligent amber eyes fixed upward, sensing salvation nearing through the storm. Lucas trembled visibly, pale face reflecting both exhaustion and relief at surviving their harrowing escape. Rebecca stood stoically, her curly dark hair blown wildly by the fierce winds, holding her battered glasses steady with shaking fingers. Suddenly, the distinctive rhythmic beat of helicopter blades cut through the blizzard, growing steadily louder until powerful spotlights sliced through the swirling snow, illuminating the deck below. Harper exhaled sharply, feeling a surge of profound relief as she recognized the silhouette of a Sikorsky MH-60 Black Hawk descending carefully toward their precarious position. The helicopter hovered expertly mere feet above, gusts buffeting the small group as thick ropes swiftly descended, unfurling precisely in front of them. Immediately, Captain Ethan Cole rappelled down gracefully, landing beside Harper with assured confidence. Ethan Cole was tall, athletic, and carried an aura of unwavering authority tempered by genuine compassion. His short-cropped brown hair peeked slightly beneath his tactical helmet, framing intense gray eyes that swiftly assessed each survivor's condition. "Harper Blake." Ethan's voice was calm, yet reassuringly firm. Harper nodded briskly, extending the secured metal case containing the virus sample toward him. "We need immediate extraction," she said urgently, "and this evidence must reach the right hands. No cover-ups this time." Ethan accepted the case solemnly, nodding with understanding. "My orders precisely," he replied firmly, securing the case safely to his tactical gear. Behind Ethan, Lieutenant Jenna Barnes piloted the helicopter steadily, expertly compensating for unpredictable Antarctic gusts. Jenna, young yet experienced, kept her short red hair tucked securely beneath a flight helmet, her green eyes radiating composed determination as she skillfully maneuvered the craft closer to facilitate a safe extraction. "Let's move quickly," Ethan commanded decisively, helping Lucas clip securely onto a rope harness first. Lucas hesitated briefly, fear flickering in his eyes, But then determination set in, and he tightened his grip bravely, ascending swiftly towards safety. Rebecca followed immediately after, clutching her data-filled satchel protectively. Harper watched carefully, ensuring each teammate's safety first. Ranger glanced toward her questioningly, tail swishing anxiously. "You're next, Ranger," Harper urged gently, patting him reassuringly. Ethan skillfully secured the dog with a special harness. Ranger glanced upward trustingly, then ascended rapidly, paws paddling instinctively as he rose through the blizzard. Ethan turned finally toward Harper, noticing her bleeding injury with concern. "Can you climb?" he asked softly, offering support. Harper nodded resolutely, stubbornly brushing aside exhaustion. "I've faced worse," she replied wryly, gripping the rope firmly and pulling herself upward steadily, Ethan climbing protectively alongside. As they boarded, Harper glimpsed through swirling snow a final horde of infected converging helplessly below, clawing vainly toward departing salvation. Jenna swiftly maneuvered the helicopter upward, quickly gaining altitude. The Sikorsky banked gracefully away from Polaris Station, now fading ominously beneath swirling snow and relentless darkness, a haunting monument to humanity's reckless hubris. On board, the warmth felt miraculous. Ethan moved efficiently, assessing each survivor's injuries swiftly. Lucas sat pale but relieved, breathing deeply as tears of gratitude welled silently. Rebecca steadied herself carefully, exhaustion etched deeply into her composed features, yet her determined eyes remained alert. Ranger curled protectively beside Harper, muzzle resting comfortingly across her lap. Harper felt tension finally begin to ease, though her vigilant nature refused complete relaxation until fully secure. From the cockpit, Jenna announced quietly yet confidently, "Colonel Sullivan requests immediate communication." Ethan handed Harper a headset gently, indicating silent permission. "Harper Blake here," she announced firmly. A pause followed briefly, filled only by static crackling softly over the headset. Then a voice, achingly familiar yet tinged with disbelief, finally responded hesitantly. "Harper, is that really you?" Harper's breath caught painfully, heart suddenly racing wildly. "This is Dr. Raymond Ellis. I'm your father." Her mind flashed back vividly to fragmented childhood memories. A warm smile, comforting hands, stories whispered lovingly at bedtime. Fragments she'd buried deep beneath layers of duty and loss. Now resurfacing powerfully, overwhelming emotions threatened composure she'd so carefully cultivated. "Dad," she choked softly, scarcely daring believe herself. Silence lingered momentarily before Raymond Ellis's emotional reply came through shakily. "Yes, Harper, it's me. After all these years, I've finally found you." Harper swallowed painfully, feeling tears sting fiercely behind tightly shut eyes. Ranger glanced upward questioningly, sensing Harper's profound emotional turmoil intuitively, pressing gently closer. Lucas and Rebecca exchanged surprised glances, realizing significance privately, respectfully affording quiet space. Harper inhaled deeply, voice finally steady enough to respond clearly, yet emotionally charged. "I've missed you, more than you know." Raymond Ellis's relieved sigh carried immense weight. Years of grief melting swiftly into overwhelming joy. "I'm bringing you home now," he promised fiercely. "We'll never be separated again." Harper nodded silently, scarcely daring trust fragile, hope blossoming powerfully within aching heart, now finally healing. Days later, safely returned stateside, Harper reunited tearfully, joyously, with Dr. Raymond Ellis. Their embrace was prolonged, unashamedly emotional. Years of separation, misunderstanding, sorrow finally healing beneath genuine familial love long delayed, but profoundly renewed. Nearby, Colonel Hank Sullivan watched silently, deeply moved himself witnessing this heartfelt reunion. Lucas Donovan and Rebecca Calloway received swift medical treatment, their bravery lauded publicly alongside Harper's exceptional courage. Government officials, under relentless public pressure and undeniable evidence Harper recovered meticulously, reluctantly acknowledged profound failures. Project Lazarus's disastrous truth was publicly exposed finally. Polaris station permanently sealed beneath thick Antarctic ice, a stark monument forever reminding humanity of reckless hubris consequences. Harper Blake, Lucas Donovan, Rebecca Calloway, and Ranger became celebrated symbols worldwide, epitomizing bravery amidst despair, hope surviving darkness, and humanity's indomitable resilience confronting catastrophic error honestly. Lucas quietly resumed viral research, dedicating career passionately toward preventing future tragedies similar. Rebecca embraced advocacy determinedly, tirelessly promoting ethical transparency, demanding accountability from powerful institutions worldwide. Ranger retired peacefully beside Harper, beloved companion honoring steadfast loyalty courageously displayed amidst desperate Antarctic trials. Harper, alongside Raymond Ellis, rebuilt fractured familial bonds deeply, cherishing renewed connections profoundly. Understanding first-hand preciousness found within second chances granted rarely, yet immensely treasured forever. Beneath clear nighttime skies glittering brilliantly, Harper gazed upward thoughtfully, reflecting deeply upon improbable survival, emotional reunions deeply healing lifelong wounds finally. Beside her, Raymond Ellis stood protectively, presence profoundly comforting beyond mere words expressing adequately. Ranger lay quietly nearby, breathing steady, contentment radiating palpably beneath gentle starlight, illuminating finally peaceful journey's culmination. "We've survived darkness," Harper whispered gratefully, finally embracing genuine hope courageously reclaimed. Raymond Ellis smiled softly, gently squeezing daughter's hand lovingly within reassuring grasp. "And found true light once again," he affirmed emotionally, contentedly. In the story we've journeyed through together, Harper, Lucas, Rebecca, and Ranger remind us of something truly powerful. Even in our darkest moments, hope, courage, and faith can lead us back to the light. In our daily lives, we all face struggles and hidden fears. But remember, you're never alone. Family, friendship, and faith will always guide you home. If this story touched your heart, please consider sharing it with those you love. Leave a comment below saying amen to spread hope and courage. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories that remind us of the good in this world. May God bless you and keep you safe always. Comment amen if you believe.